A lot of people are eager to invest, but unfortunately, most people don't have enough money to make a good investment. Because if you invest your $1,000 that you hardly saved, you probably will lose it or make 3 or 4% a year. So the question that recently crossed my mind was, what's the best way to invest if you don't have a lot of money? People have been making millions, if not billions, by taking advantage of opportunities such as the 2008 crash. And your job is to invest here at the bottom and cash out at the top. But how do you know where exactly are we now? In the mid-2000s, when the stock market crashed, investors didn't know what to do with all of the money that they had. The stock market was too risky, and government bonds had extremely low returns. So the financial institutions came out with a brilliant idea. A lot of people wanted to buy a house, and banks would provide them with a mortgage if they had a good credit score and a sustainable income. At some point, banks had a lot of mortgages and decided to sell them to investment banks. Investment banks realized that they were good, safe investments and with a much higher returns than government bonds. So they purchased thousands of them, grouped them together, and sold them as securities to other investors. It's a pretty good scheme, right? Think about it. Everyone is happy. But here is when things went wrong. Since these investments were good enough and more investors wanted to buy them, lenders had to provide more mortgages. But everyone who could afford a house already had one. Therefore, banks started lending money to people with bad credit scores and without a sustainable income. The logic behind it was simple. If they want to be able to pay back the mortgage, they would simply take back the house and sell it since home prices were rising. And secondly, as soon as they create the mortgage, they will sell it to investment banks, and it will be their problem. Investment banks didn't give a damn because they knew that they will sell them anyways to investors. So they borrowed huge loans to buy them and sold them again to investors. Everyone was making money. However, at some point, borrowers with bad credit scores defaulted on their debt. As expected, the bank took their house and put it on sale, as they have planned. Not a big deal, but more and more borrowers started defaulting and more houses were on sale. And since everyone who could afford a house already had one, the oversupply caused house prices to decline, which means lenders and investment banks were left with thousands of defaulted mortgages and houses they couldn't sell. That caused a panic in the market. Everyone was trying to cash out before it's too late. But investment banks weren't able to pay back to their investors because they have spent all of their money on these worthless mortgages. So they began declaring bankruptcy one after another, and that only created a bigger panic. Banks who provided these loans in the first place also couldn't pay back to their depositors, so they had to shut down one after another. The entire stock market was down. The market lost $1.2 trillion in value. Bank of America stock, for example, fell from $26 to under $6 a share. Everyone was afraid to invest. That's when investors like Warren Buffett stepped in and made huge investments in Goldman Sachs, Bank of America, Dow Chemicals, and many more. Because he understood that in a couple of years the economy will recover and will start growing again, and these companies will regain back their value. And that's exactly what happened. The government bailed out many companies, printed trillions of dollars, and saved the economy from a long-lasting recession. And we had another period of economic prosperity. And Warren Buffett made $10 billion from this crisis, according to Wall Street Journal. We will have another crisis sooner or later because we have created many bubbles that are waiting to burst, such as the student debt. The only question is when. It might happen this year, maybe next year, maybe in a few years. And if you are ready, it might be your chance to make an incredible fortune. But without basic knowledge of the stock market, you will not stand a chance.